All right, welcome back. As you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, this is not the only version of the whiteboard I'm going to have. I normally record these on Saturday morning. It's currently 10:15 on Friday night. And I drew this board out on Thursday, hoping that nothing would change. Something changed. So, yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. Don't worry, I will cover that. I will share my thoughts on what's going on with the G2 situation. But until then, here's what we found out from Sunday to Thursday. First one, big news. Retals Magic Cheese, no longer Retals Magic Cheese. It's a little tragic. The classic RMC, they were under the Luminosity banner last season. They're probably not going to be under the Luminosity banner this season. They're in talks with organizations, but it looks like Retals and Majicbear are a duo. They have let Cheese look for an option. He's looking for a team. I'm not sure if they kicked Cheese or if Cheese decided to leave on his own. That's still actually like up in the air. But in order to replace Cheese, they are targeting Chronic. And it looks like it's a lock, but also Chronic is still an option for the LJ First Killer duo. This was some weird news that we heard earlier today that I'm not really sure what to read. It's like, okay, so Chronic is locked with Majicbear and Retals, but he's also still a possibility for the LJ First Killer duo. Like, it feels like the situation where it's like, you know, Retals and Majicbear made a verbal agreement with Chronic. Chronic did not agree. So I have no idea if that's actually the case. I don't really know, but I would assume these guys stick together. It would be Retals, Magic, Chronic in the new RMC. I do have the RMC crossed out. I didn't have a better red. I'm sorry. But I would assume it's Retals, Magic, Chronic as long as Chronic isn't picked for the LJ First Killer duo. And I don't think he's going to be, so I'd expect this to happen next season. They're in talks with multiple orgs. Achilleas said that they were in talks with 2 or 3 organizations. One of them is GenG. Chronic is still with GenG, I believe. I'm not sure when his contract expires. It might expire in 24. It might expire in 25. If it expires in 25, that makes things a little bit easier, I think. But they're also in talks with the Pioneers. It's no longer the Kansas City Pioneers. They're just Pioneers. But Pioneers are looking to come to North America. And they're at least in talks with this trio right now. So next one is Power. This one was a big surprise to me. They're releasing Bananahead. This team went 6 for 6 in OCE regionals. They made it to round 5 of Swiss every single time and then got eliminated there. So I guess that's just not enough for them. And honestly, I get it, but surprised that Bananahead is the one to go. There's always a meme about OCE talent consolidation and how it just never makes sense. But a lot of people said that Power kicking Amphis last year made no sense, even though they brought in Bananahead, and then they swept the entire region. So in terms of where things could go, thankfully we have Mythalion. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I normally just call him Myth. But Mythalion's been doing some research. He's been going on ball chasing and seeing who is scrimming with who. And so while these aren't official, some of the things that have been found is that Fever and Torsos seem to be scrimming with Gus. So that could be a Gus to Power move if that actually pans out. And then Bananahead has been scrimming with Fiber and Hunter. Fiber actually was a standout at the World Championship. Hunter's got a lot of mechanics as well. He's been known to be like a mechanical prodigy if he actually does have the time to put into Rocket League. I know there was a thing like years ago where he had to play basketball instead, and that's why they didn't make Worlds or make a major. I think they still made Worlds. But Hunter's still really good as well. He was part of that Chiefs roster who made top 8 at Esports World Cup. So that bottom trio with Bananahead, Fiber, and Hunter is probably my favorite out of the OCE region should these moves continue the way they're going. Cloud9, I apologize for the end of this Cloud9 logo because it actually ruins how pretty it looks. Like, I feel like I nailed that except for the last one, but I was just struggling forever. They're not expected to field a team. Originally, they were going to field a team. They had a coach lined up from the word of Achilleas, and now they're not planning on fielding a team anymore. They were in talks with many different teams. One of them was Snowmen. This is something that Achilleas has mentioned on stream before. They actually had everything agreed to sign Snowmen before Worlds even happened, and then that deal completely fell through. And the big news about this is that Squishy's a co-owner. Like, it's kind of surprising to see them, get Squishy as a co-owner. He's going to be a part of the organization until he is no longer a co-owner. And like, the co-owner is much more permanent position than just playing on the roster, obviously. So it's surprising that they're not going to have a team. I'm sure they're going to continue looking. I'm sure they're going to continue baiting, but we're back to the world where Cloud9 doesn't have a team and they're just teasing about getting into Rocket League again. I apologize, but I did my best on this logo. This is Ninjas in Pajamas. Kind of happy with it, but I'm also like really upset with how badly it's spaced. But the big news for Ninjas in Pajamas is that they're exploring options in Europe. I think this is a win if the org is willing to spend. They're interested in the Alpha, Itachi, and Oski roster. That would take some buyouts because I believe Itachi is still under contract from everything that seems to be the case, and Alpha is definitely under contract. They're still exploring some other options as well, but the fact that they're interested in the EU market, I think, actually makes a lot of sense. Down in South America, last year they had 7 different organizations that I'd argue had LAN aspirations. At the current moment, they still have Furia, Team Secret, which both made LANs last year. And then I would say if Loud sticks around, they're a team that definitely wants to be making LANs. Crew wants to be making LANs. And I'd argue W7M is the kind of organization that wants to be represented on the international stage. So considering there's only 2 spots for LAN in South America, one of them is pretty locked down by Furia. It makes sense that, Ninjas in Pajamas don't want to be the 6th. And honestly, they have a better chance of making a LAN through Europe. Even if they picked up like an Atomic Toxin Tech Oz, they'd have a better chance of making LAN with that roster than with, fighting it out in South America as one of the 6 teams fighting for 2 spots. So I actually really like their interest in Europe, and I hope they get this Alpha, Itachi, and Oski roster because I think that's just a LAN favorite at this point. Maybe not a favorite to win it, but definitely a favorite to make the next LAN. Speaking of the next LAN, we know it's in Birmingham, so that's kind of cool. Back to the UK. Deleted XD. They're no longer Deleted XD. They're Deleted Gaming. But I don't really have an updated logo, so it's still the Deleted XD logo. You can see the XD is the eyes. I think it's kind of cute, to be honest. But they are picking up Andy and Gyro. This was reported by Achilleas. This is where I have to get a little bit into depth because some of these were reported by Achilleas. Some of these were reported by Rltvcom. Rltvcom, I was mentioning them last week, how they are starting to report actual rumors, and they've been pretty accurate so far. That being said, I'm definitely going to trust what Achilleas says the most, and then with Rltvcom, still kind of like say it because it does seem reputable, but take it with a grain of salt. I'd say I trust their opinion a little bit less than Achilleas at this point, just because Achilleas has been around doing this for quite literally 4 years and has basically almost never missed. So as we get into some of the North America and just general duos, Deleted XD, Andy and Gyro, I think that's a good veteran core that should be able to make it to every single event. They're scrimming with several options, including Crispy, Zanil, Arsenal, and AJ. That's quite the trio. I believe Achilleas released a scrim tryouts, and there's another name on that list now, but I'm blanking on who it is off the top of my head. But I think that's a solid pickup for the organization if they want to be. I think, they're still trying to grow as an organization. And so picking up a solid duo, even if it's veterans, it's probably not going to be a team that's pushing for LAN spots, but it's a team that is stable, will be able to see in every week, and can keep getting your name out there as you continue to build. So I actually really like it. Not under an organization, but still in the North American sphere, Noly and Kofyr are locked as a duo. This was reported by Rltvcom. Same with the scrim partners, but this was specifically reported by Rltvcom. That being said, Achilleas basically confirmed it in the Shift Discord that is actually accurate, that they are a duo looking, A for third, but B to represent an organization. They've been scrimming with NAS, Evo, and Chicago. I think an interesting thing to note about Noly, I've done a decent amount of research on Noly, and one thing that Lawler mentioned that really helped his first roster have a lot of success with Carmine Core is that Noly was the best at facilitating Astral in terms of how Astral was able to play best. So obviously there's a lot of rumors with Astral's toxicity, but one of the things that Astral does when he plays best is he just goes completely quiet, has to completely focus and lock in. And we've seen his masterclass performances that can happen, like with Moist in Rotterdam. But seemingly Noly was the best teammate that Astral has had, who understood he's just going to go silent, do what he does best, and figure out how to best support him. And that's part of what brought that first KC roster to have a lot of success. So we have heard rumors of Evo being a little bit difficult to work with. Not exactly sure what that entails, so I don't want to put out too much speculation on that front. But I'm curious that maybe Noly could be one of the better teammates to bring out the best potential in Evo. And I'm actually kind of curious how that Noly Kofyr Evo roster would work. And I think they would turn a little bit more heads than some might anticipate. As for NAS, I still think he'll probably end up with I don't want to say a slightly better roster, but at least a slightly better roster on paper, according to what a lot of public opinion would think. And Chicago is also a great shot. He was phenomenal at the World Championship. And despite the fact that he is a veteran and is not like promoting younger talent, I think he's still a great fit and still has what it takes to compete. This was also reported by Rltvcom, Archie and Joyo. They're targeting Rise. I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer. Like, if you're Archie and Joyo, you want to try to get Rise here. Are you going to get him? No guarantee. Rise, have we even seen official scrim rumors? Like, how long is this guy's vacation? You know what? Enjoy it. He deserves it. But he's been on vacation for a while. And we haven't seen him pop up with scrim rumors. But it is possible that he could join this Archie and Joyo duo. I'd love to see it. I've made my opinions on that pretty clear. Will it happen? Who knows? It's still in early stages. So don't take this as a guaranteed we're going to see those three together yet. As for TSM, they're likely exiting Rocket League. This was also reported by Rltvcom and then kind of confirmed by Achilleas in his spreadsheet earlier today. It's kind of surprising. I mean, they seemed like they were going to stick in the scene with Creams and Hockey, but now it's just no longer the case. It does appear that Creams and Hockey are still going to be a duo heading forward. They'll be looking for one. They've had multiple tryouts as well, including Zanil, who is their CRL teammate. I would expect that's the direction they'll go, but still way too early to tell. But yeah, that's the first iteration of the board. I will be right back. You guys will not miss a minute as I have to draw more logos and write a lot more stuff down. All right, I'm back. And here's the reason that you're probably here. G2, the team, is exploring their options for the 2025 season. Now, there is a lot to unpack with this one. First of all, we've already seen Team BDS is not necessarily planning to field a roster at the start of 2025. They're not running back their championship winning roster. Now it's the other team that was in the finals, G2, that we're like, not sure if they're going to be representing G2 next year. I think the most important thing to note is that they are not considering roster changes at the moment. It is still Daniel, Beast Mode, Atomic, Coach Sathu. They are still planning on running it back as a roster. The only thing is we're not sure if it's going to be underneath G2. There's been a lot of discussion about the financial state of the scene, how much it takes to support a team. This G2 roster is getting paid a lot of money. And it sounds like that, if possible, they don't want to have to pay that much money because they're not getting as much, revenue from the esport as they would like to. Now, there's a long-winded discussion along that, and we don't really have time for that today, considering the first whiteboard took up like 11 minutes. But to continue about G2, their future in Rocket League is uncertain. I can't imagine they just come in and pick up a cheaper team right after making every single finals. Like, I understand that they want to probably stay in the scene. They love being in RLCS, but we're not really sure what G2 is going to do. A little bit of added insight as well is that it's not impossible that they stick with this roster. Like, we could still see G2 with this, team of Daniel, Beast Mode, Atomic, and it's just eventually they come to terms on paying them less or something along those lines. And I guess the other thing that I will mention with this that I don't think is getting talked about all that much, I'm not really sure. I think it kind of flew under people's radars because this was an announcement that was made 2 days after Worlds, is that Stride Esports is switching directions. I'll put their statement up on the screen because I can't remember off the top of my head exactly how they phrased it, but it sounded like they were going to more of a hosting tournaments K through 12 and less, professional esports related. And so with that, there were some layoffs from Stride. Esports and layoffs, unfortunately, it's pretty common. But that was the financial partner backing it. It was G2 Stride. That Stride is this. And so if they're completely switching directions, it's not impossible that some of that funding is getting reallocated and it's like Stride isn't going to be backing G2 as much next year, not going to be a title partner. This is a little bit more speculation than I normally like to do in these videos, but I think it's worth noting that that was announced a while back, and now, G2, the organization, is shopping their roster around. So personally, I hope they still get to represent G2, and I hope that better terms are met where it can be more sustainable. I also hope that there's a lot done to help the entire scene be more stable from an org's perspective. But again, that's not really the point of this video. I probably will make a video talking about that at some point because it's being talked about a lot and it needs to be talked about a lot. And the last team I have on here, unless something gets announced in the morning and I re-record this, which is probably not going to happen, 100 Thieves are interested in the North American RLCS. I think 100 Thieves have been on the record before, and a lot of people are bringing this up, that they've been saying, oh, we're not getting into Rocket League unless it's franchised. Like, we only want to be in franchised esports. But with that being said, in the past, things can change, and if they see a right opportunity to join, they could join. So they are at least surveying the scene, and I think right now is obviously one of the best times to do it, considering how much of North America is talented and unsigned. There's, Space Station has a team. GenG doesn't actually have a team just yet, so they're not agreed on terms. G2 might be shopping around, and Rebellion is still around. But other than that, like, basically every single North American org is dropped. Oh, and Dignitas. Dignitas is still a thing. So there's plenty of, like, options to sign. And so 100 Thieves lurking in the background, trying to be interested, trying to talk with teams, doesn't entirely surprise me. This is one of the best times to do it. This news came out about 30 minutes after the G2 news came out. And so it was later clarified by Achilleas that there are actual no links from 100 Thieves to the G2 roster. So while people are speculating, it's like, oh, they could get the new G2 roster. And while that's not out of the realm of possibility, there's no direct links to that. When Achilleas announced this news about 100 Thieves, he was not referring to them picking up G2. So wanted to relay that message as well. A couple things to note about 100 Thieves, or actually just one thing to note about 100 Thieves, is that they recently got a super team for Call of Duty. This is one of the most stacked rosters. They had to compete with Gentlemates in order to secure all 4 of them. And due to how expensive some of these contracts ended up getting, Nadeshot, the CEO, ended up taking a pay cut. So if that tells you the financial state of 100 Thieves, obviously they want to remain profitable, want to stay, in the positive. But if your CEO is taking a pay cut to secure the roster that you need, you probably don't have the most leftover spending budget. And so that's why I think there's a large reason why they might not necessarily be interested in this G2 roster as well. That means that if they were to get the G2 roster, they'd have super teams and multiple teams, which would be kind of insane. But in terms of North American orgs, you now have 100 Thieves and T1, who are teams who have never been in RLCS, surveying the North American scene, trying to hop in next year. So as much as there is very little certainty on what orgs are going to be in the RLCS, it does look like there will be orgs in the North American RLCS. And honestly, with the Ninjas and Pajamas news that I mentioned earlier, it's looking a little bit more up and up for Europe. So very curious to see how this shakes out. There's no guarantee that 100 Thieves and T1 will be able to sign teams, but considering it has been announced by Achilleas that they're interested, that means that they probably want it to be known that they're interested. So I might as well throw it on here as well. So that being said, thank you all for watching. I'm sure there's going to be a lot to talk about when it comes to this G2 roster still. If they actually make a change, I'll still be shocked, but I think this roster still wants to run it back. Hopefully contracts don't get in the way of that, because that would actually suck. But it also wouldn't surprise me if the players would not let contracts get in the way. So that being said, I rambled on long enough. This is longer than it normally is, so I apologize for that. But if you're here, thank you. And I'll catch you guys hopefully before next Sunday, because I got another video planned. So see you later.